Whenever you're working with a computer, generally what you'll be told is to touch something that's grounded. The easiest, absolute easiest way to do this is, at least when working on a computer, you simply plug in your power supply. Don't turn the computer on or anything. Just by plugging this in, this entire thing's grounded, and this is connected to this, so this is grounded, this entire framing, case, everything. This is all grounded. You do not want to electrostatically shock your motherboard and ruin your components. So what I'm going to do is simply get the power cord for this power supply. We're going to take this cord, plug it into the back. Make sure, sometimes you'll have to make sure the switch for this is on. So, this is now plugged in, it is powered on, so technically I could turn this computer on. But we don't want to turn it on, we simply want to touch the case. Touching it every now and then should be fine. If you have carpet, you especially want to do this. If you have hardwood floor, it's not that big of a deal still, but having clothing charges your skin, and once you touch a component, you could static charge it, and then you're basically throwing lightning at your motherboard. Not a good idea. So yeah, just keep like a hand on this at all times, or just touch it every now and then, and you'll be good. Let's get straight into the process of switching this out. So in here I have a lower end CPU. The first thing you're going to want to do is disconnect all of the power connectors. Just tuck them away. Alright. So then, once we have all the power connectors off, you don't actually have to remove like other accessories like USB and everything. That's really optional. So we're just going to get in here and we're going to take out the CPU. Okay, so here I have my CPU that I will be changing out. This is an i7-3770. I believe it is a 4-core, 6-thread CPU. And in here I have an i5-3470S. So we will be switching that out. Okay, so I got a little better view. Here's the CPU cooler. For this specific one, you simply have to push down one side and pull out at the same time, releasing it, and then disconnecting the other side. Generally, if you have a stock CPU cooler, you'll simply have 4 screws that you'll have to undo. So here's my CPU cooler. Make sure you disconnect the wire so you don't break it. Here's our little bit of thermal compound on there, right? And this is an off-brand CPU cooler, so if you have to, you can take out the little pegs holding in the heatsink holder, and then pop everything out, and that's our holder. If you have any sort of name brand holder, you won't actually have to take these out, but I do in order to release my lever switch. So a lot of people actually, for some reason, have trouble with this. It's very simple. All you have to do is push down on the very edge of this clip right here. Okay, so for editing purposes, I had to actually pull my other motherboard, but it's the same idea. All right, you're just going to push down the tab, pull out, and let it up. Okay. Once it's up, you just simply flip it up. Flip it up. Right. Take out your CPU. This is the component of your computer that controls everything, right? So once you have your CPU taken out, you can get rid of the old one, right? And then we bring in our new CPU, and you hold at the top and the bottom. You can usually tell by this gold strip at the top. That's the top. That's the bottom. And these are made for zero insertion force. Well, that's technically a different type of CPU, but these basically the same thing. What you do is you simply just drop it on. Alright, you just drop it on. If it's not lined up, be sure to pick it up and then move it. Try not to slide it around, which is really shouldn't if it's seated properly. See that the whole board moves. And just a little tip, guys. Do not touch these. I've touched, I think, 2 boards. Alright, one survived actually. I was able to fix it, but the other, the pin touched another pin, right? I stuck my CPU in there. I folded down. It was shorting 2 circuits, and I ended up destroying the entire board. There was no fix for it, and it went crazy. It didn't even turn on. So be sure you don't touch these. And if you have to repair it, you need a magnifying glass, okay, and really small tweezers or like a needle. It's really hard. Just try not to touch it, right? So just take this. We just drop it in, right? Fold down this top piece, let it down, and then as you can see, when you push this back, this will come forward, and then this little piece back here will press down the back, and the front won't be able to move up, so it adds force to the whole thing, and that's it. That's it. It's in. Make sure you push it in. Make sure, even if you just get it under just barely, so let's say you got it under like that, it still slides itself in. It's really neat. It's really simple. And yeah, so we're gonna go back to the other board now and continue. Okay, we're back to our old view so that I can use 2 hands for this. Again, this is a weird off-brand CPU cooler, so usually you won't actually have to remove the mount. I do though, and it really sucks. But once you get it in, it works. The cooler is very cheap, and it works. It actually works very well. It can handle quite a bit of heat. It's very hard to overheat the CPU at all, even with the fan off. So then, once that's done, you're going to want to put a little thermal compound in here. We already have some, and you can, as long as it's not too old, reuse a little bit of thermal compound, but I will actually use a little bit of brand new, just because it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so here we have some Cooler Master, just a little tiny bottle of thermal compound. What thermal compound is it's simply usually a silicone base. It provides a very efficient way from the heat from the CPU to get to here, and from here the heat can be dissipated through the air, allowing this to cool down very efficiently. If you do not have a thermal compound, you technically can go bare. You just have to make sure, one, you don't slide around too much in order to prevent damaging the top casing, and then 2, you're not running really high loads, because without the thermal compound, this does not transfer heat, even in bare contact, to copper, metal, whatever you're going to use for this part right here. It doesn't transfer very well, because while it is conductive, this is resistant to heat, and that's actually why it's used, because when you look over here, the heat comes out this way, it's resisting the heat, it's helping the fan. That's what allows cool air to go in, hot air to come out, and allows this to cool down. So this has to be a certain way, if you will. So this has to have some way to get its heat from here into here, even though it's kind of a little bit hard to get the heat onto here. So that's what thermal compound is for. So we're just going to take a little bit of this, just very little. Everyone seems to put too much, but this is it. Put a little dab right in the middle, okay? Just like that. And you honestly don't need much. Look at that. It's not much. Because this is going to be flush, and not to mention we're using some. This is going to be flush. It's like just pressing together really easy. There's no room in there. Okay, this is going to be almost completely flat. This is basically just filling the little tiny gaps on top of your CPU, creating a very thin layer between the CPU and the cooler, and then filling the gaps in the cooler. Okay, it's making a very efficient bond. You do not need much. The more you have, it could be actually worse, because you could get inside of your CPU socket, right? You don't want to do that. So now that we got some good compound on there, I'm just going to put this on, right? Alright, so we got our CPU fan here. We're going to plug it in first to our 3 or 4 pin connector. For me, it's a 4 pin. And for this specific style of CPU coolers, Generally, you'll have two clips on both sides. Your first one orients this however you want it. I can have a fan in the back, and I want full airflow going this way, from the front, through the middle, out the back. So you actually want to match that with your CPU cooler. It'll make it a lot easier, a lot better, and more efficient in the end. So what I'll do is simply latch one side. Oh, I am so sorry, guys. Maybe I can learn off you all on how to build a computer, right? So you need to put these back in. Otherwise, this is just gonna come out real easy. How these work is there's little plastic pieces inside of these clips down here, and we push these in. It spreads the plastic piece out, right? So it goes, and then the board's right here, and it can't pull through the board as long as this is here. So it will look wiggly, and that's actually meant to be. You cannot pull out though. You can wiggle all you want. Alright, it's actually wiggling quite a bit, but you can't pull out because there's that spliced at the end, and it's not going to come out. Alright, so now we can take our CPU cooler, plug it in, and just so you know, guys, I am touching the base. I usually touch with like my forearm because I rest on the base. Alright, so you just like go like this, you can go like this while you're working on it, you know, whatever. Now we're going to latch one side of this. Okay. And because they basically hang loose, you might have to get your fingers in there. Alright, so now we got it. Once you get that, this is not flush, by the way. You want to, the best way I found it is to keep this off thermal compound, pull up, try to latch this side at least as close as you can before latching it, and then push down. That's it. Now, once you're done, give it a little wiggle, right? Make sure that thermal compound moves around as much as possible, gets setted in there, or seated. And then that is it. We replace our power connectors. If you have an extended pin, so like a 20+4, it can sometimes be a little difficult, especially when it's an old power supply. Okay, and then we put on our CPU power plug. Just a random tip, guys. I recommend ATX motherboards and cases and things like that. So much easier to work with. Right here, my hands are just like, they're crammed in here. It's not good. I don't like micro ATX. Much prefer standard ATX over micro. It makes it so much easier working. Okay, so I guess we're nearing the end of our video. We now have the CPU in there, our new CPU cooler, or I'm sorry, our new CPU in there, and our standard CPU cooler back on. At this point, you can unplug your machine, move it to wherever you're going to go, connect it all up, and you should be good. Sometimes you may have to get new drivers for your CPU, which will automatically install. That's no problem. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a clip of the machine turning on, and just to make sure it does turn on. Sometimes you'll have a CPU that is incompatible with your motherboard. So for example, this motherboard right here is compatible with this CPU, which is an i5-3470S. My other motherboard, the one that I usually had in this case with 4 DIMM slots and was much better, was not compatible. And this is the most powerful CPU I have right now. And I really needed to use it for video editing, so I had to settle for not only less DIMM slots, I only have 2 in this one, right? I also had to settle for only 1 PCI Express slot. This board does not fit inside of my case perfectly. This board is a micro ATX board. This is why I don't like micro ATX. Although they can fit into ATX cases, it's really nice, you still get that really small field of working. So now that that's done, we should go ahead and I guess plug it in and make sure it works. Okay, so I just got everything plugged in. I got our CPU in there, and I put in my graphics card because I forgot to do that in the last step. So now you simply hope that your CPU is compatible with the motherboard. I've actually had 2 CPUs that I've gotten that are not compatible with the motherboard I already have, and it is annoying because then you have to restart whatever you're doing and rethink everything. But let's just hope that it's compatible with this motherboard. Go ahead and turn it on. Looks like we got something. Now let's just hope the graphics are working. Okay. Looks like our graphics are working. Sweet. Alright, so looks like the CPU is compatible, and it also looks like it works, and that is the biggest thing. We now have a much more powerful CPU in our system. Alright everyone, I guess that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. There will be more videos for this series, and it's going to be all about building computers. So I really hope you all check that out, and I really hope you all give me some feedback on it because I really want to know what you think. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment what you think, give me some tips, give me some ideas, because I'm running out, guys. And yeah, see y'all next time.